Okay, so hi everyone. We're here with Ruth Ehrhardt, who is a traditional home birth midwife in South Africa. Hi, Ruth.
Yeah.
Um, and Ruth is the mother of 4 home birthed children. She's the author of The Basic Needs of a Woman in Labour. And Michelle O'Donnell says about that booklet that if all women, midwives, doulas, and doctors were to assimilate the contents, it would be a turning point in the history of childbirth and therefore the history of mankind, which is a big accolade.
Yeah, awesome review.
Yeah, a very awesome review. So today, Cassie and I would like to talk with Ruth about free birth, which is a hot topic at the moment in the UK. We're finding that more women are considering and choosing free birth at the moment because home birth services are being cancelled due to COVID in the UK. So perhaps first, Ruth, you could tell us what it means to be a traditional midwife as opposed to a medical obstetric midwife, and then tell us a bit about true midwifery and what that is.
Well, in South Africa, we have 2 different types of midwives or birth attendants. So you have your midwives who come through the nursing training. So and then part of their training is midwifery, and they're registered with the nursing council, and they are taught within the medical model. And then you have traditional midwifery, which is something that you've always had worldwide, where midwifery is passed down often from grandmother to daughter or aunt. It's just something that you would have assimilated growing up in the community or culture that you live in. I am the daughter of a traditional midwife. So my mother was a midwife. We lived rurally, and she caught the local babies. So I think there was a lot that I just assimilated through osmosis through her, and then had my own babies at home, not really knowing. Well, I knew that people gave birth in hospital, but I didn't really see it as an option because it wasn't a common option in my community. So I see that kind of as a naive privilege that I had when I was having my own children. But I did decide that I wanted to kind of get an official piece of paper and do some form of training. But I knew that the nursing midwifery wasn't the right route for me. And I'm not saying it isn't for like that for everybody. I think there are different paths of midwifery for different types of midwifery and people. So I did my training through the North American Registry of Midwives, which offers various paths to midwifery, but what you end up with is being a certified professional midwife, which is the same credential that Ina May Gaskin holds, and Robin Lim, and many incredible home birth midwives. And I did it here in South Africa. I did all the practical training here, but I did my exams there. And that was apprenticing to various home birth midwives and learning practically like that. And then you create a portfolio, which you then send off to the States, and then you go and do all your final exams over there. So I'm a certified professional midwife in the States, but I'm registered as a traditional birth attendant in South Africa. The South African Nursing Council claims the title of midwife they claim that it belongs to them. So I'm a registered birth attendant. Traditional birth attendant in South Africa, and that's why I'm able to practice here. So I attend home births. I do everything medically that a midwife, or I know everything medically that a midwife would have, but there's obviously also the cultural and traditional and holistic and herbal and homeopathic and all the other stuff that's taken into consideration around the care of the families and the births. Yeah.
And your website is called True Midwifery, and I think on the homepage you have a quote from Lao Tzu.
From the Beijing.
Yeah.
Which I don't remember off by heart, so don't put.
No, I know, I'm not going to do. I don't remember it either. The spirit of that quote is that really the job of anybody attending a birth is to leave the mother alone to do her work and to hold a space so that she's as undisturbed in her process of giving birth as possible, so that when the baby is born, she and the baby know that they did it themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, our job as caregivers, in whatever capacity, and anyone who is surrounding a pregnant person, our job is to create this, or to be part of creating the fertile soil for the birth to happen. And that's just it's love at the end of the day, and laughter and beauty and nurturing. And so that is definitely the key component to it all. And in the same way as when the farmer kind of creates the right soil for that seed to be planted and for that seed to then sprout and flower, then absolutely the flower flowered on her own.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Such a beautiful description.
Gorgeous, yeah.
In the shower, what exactly is, I believe, is the currency of like supporting a woman in birth, like what, because women can do it and their bodies can do it. And then I thought, well, yeah, exactly, it's just about helping to create an environment where she can just go in and feel safe and basically be an agent of relaxation. It's very simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is very simple, and yet we screw it up all the time. And it's because it is about non-doing more than doing, and so we so often want to jump in and do and rescue and save and advise and I mean the reality is as well in nature that that in most cases things work out well. Flowers bloom, apples grow, babies are born. And then there are those situations where it doesn't work out. And so that is something that we as caregivers do have to take into consideration and hold as well. It's also part of the holding that has to take place, that we're not dropping people emotionally at that time either. But yeah, that actually we can trust the process if we create the right kind of container for it. And so it's honing the skills of creating that loving container for birth to take place. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we were wondering if you'd be up for talking a bit more about free birth, because we're aware at the moment lots of people are thinking about it who weren't necessarily thinking about it before, and some people might find themselves free birthing without necessarily having intended that initially, because some midwives aren't able to make it to home births anymore in the UK, certainly. And so we were wondering what thoughts and reflections you might have around free birth in this current climate.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel for anybody having to make choices which are adrenalized at this stage. And so, I mean, I think that's my only reticence or fear around it is having to make any choice at the moment around your birth that is adrenalized and fear-based is unsafe. And so I think, and I mean, just so you know as well, for today, my book is available as a free Kindle download, and that I've just decided that if there's a way that I can just try and help or support as best as possible. So it's called The Basic Needs of Women in Labour.
Is that just today, Ruth?
And it's just today, yeah.
Just today. Yeah.
I'll make it available again.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just today. I did put a thing up on Facebook last night when I made it available. I did want to do it earlier in the week, and then life happened, and I was only able to do it last night. But in terms of free birth, I mean, I think the thing where I have struggled with free birth is the need for the mother and the couple leading up to the moment of birth having to download a whole lot of information, or feeling the need to download a whole lot of information, which is very stimulating for the neocortex So, which is something that can hinder the birthing process
Wow.
if the neocortex is overstimulated. And then also, like, downloading a whole lot of information around all the things that can go wrong, all the obstetric emergencies, you know, teaching yourself around postpartum hemorrhage and neonatal resuscitation and shoulder dystocia and this and this and this and this and that, and all of this stuff, which kind of what's so great about having a midwife sitting and knitting in the corner, not doing anything, is that she holds those skills. She holds that, you know, the knowledge of when to jump in and deal with that stuff when it's actually happening. But actually, ideally the person in labor is able to, you know, as Michelle Ardant talks about, kind of leave their body and travel to the stars to go and fetch their baby and and come back. And so I worry that the person in labor is too busy thinking about, okay, what stage of labor am I at now, and what about this, and I mustn't forget about the cord, and all of this stuff, which creates an adrenalized environment, and can then create the problems of create those obstetric emergencies. But it can be a bit of a vicious circle. And I'm really not saying this as somebody who's anti free birth at all. I mean, I've cared for a number of women who prepare for free birth. They come to me for all their antenatal checks. And I still actually help them with postnatal care as well, but they feel strong and safe enough to birth by themselves at home, and that's wonderful. But they really work on that aspect of it, of that thing of actually just trusting the process, and that they and their partner are really holding it in that way, or and that they feel that their partner can just be like the midwife knitting in the corner, or that the doula can do that. And so, I mean, I suppose that would be my best my advice, as much as possible, would be to that if that is the route that you feel strongly that you need to take, is to, as much as possible, create a safe, loving environment for yourself, an environment where you do feel safe, where you feel loved, where you feel held, where you're not going to be, your neocortex isn't going to be overstimulated. Warmth is important, low lighting is important. You don't want to be surrounded by somebody who's going to be asking you a bunch of questions, or who is easily adrenalized, because that's really, really important, is that whoever you choose to have with you isn't going to suddenly, they've got to be your rock, they've got to be your lighthouse, they've got to be the person who's really holding it through what is labor. I mean, labor is that sea at, I mean, is that ship at sea rocking and making its way through. Thank you. And the person who is holding space for you is the lighthouse, and you've got to kind of, in that rocky sea, got to know that there's that person kind of holding the space and isn't going to flap. So make sure that the person who's with you is not likely to flap unless it's necessary. And even then, actually, the only person who's allowed to flap is the mother.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. Yeah, that's really good advice. And it's true that the women that I know who have free birth, most of them had already had a baby before, and they'd done a lot of preparation in the early stages, so that in the last trimester they could just let it go completely and not be in the neocortex, and as the hormone relaxing is just opening them, they're just going into that more open space. So obviously at the moment, for some women who are just starting to consider it, it might be due, like they're already in the last trimester and they're due to have the baby, so they haven't had that time to prepare, and now maybe they're trying to cram it in. So what you just said is really great advice, to not try to overcram the neocortex, because that's going to be counter productive to the actual birthing flow.
There's also a really lovely pamphlet, which, if you remind me, I will send to you as well. It was put together by Sister Morningstar, and I mean, it's not a free birthing pamphlet at all, but It's very similar to my book, but it's got lovely little illustrations on just how birth works and how you can cut the cord yourself and when to do it, and what is most important for the mother and the baby. So that I find quite useful to give to people who might live quite far away from me, and it's their third or fourth child, and they tend to labor quite quickly, and I probably won't get there in time. So so we will often go over, okay, so what if I'm on the road and the baby is busy being born, and how we're going to handle it, and how important it is for the dad to keep his adrenaline levels low, and I'll be on we can kind of go over it and speak over the speakerphone while I'm driving, and but this little pamphlet is actually really great for that as well. But I mean, I think the thing is that what's really important is that feeling of safety, warmth. It's really important that the room is warm, even if the mother is because often in labor women will crave fresh air and they'll want all the windows open, and the rest of us will be sitting there freezing cold. But at the moment of birth, it's really important that the room is warm, because suddenly her body temperature will drop from the blood loss and the fluid loss and all of that. And so just having access to a little radiator or heater that you can just turn on very quickly. Those little fan heaters are great. You can even put them up on a little stool, or if she's birthing in the bathroom, which can also get quite cold, like often women like to sit on the toilet and birth there. So if there's a shower or a bath where you can just turn on hot water and just allow the room to steam up, and to have towels heated up as well that you can cover the mother and the baby with. And obviously for the mother and the baby to be skin to skin as soon as birth has happened, but not to force that either, because sometimes the mothers need to just process what's happened and take care of the baby, look and see what's happening before they're ready to pick the baby up. If you are, and if it's in water, then just help the baby up, please. And sometimes babies are, sometimes they land on earth and they're kind of very much in their bodies, and you can see there's something that their muscle tone is good and they're wriggling around, but some kind of hold their breath a little bit. And then just a gentle massage with a warm towel, just stimulating the baby very gently and just wiping any mucus away from their mouth and nose, is just a really good way of just making sure that the baby is landing and in their body. But what's so great is that if the cord is attached, that there is this blood and oxygen and transfer of everything that is good happening to the baby anyway. So a gentle transition is taking place anyway. But warmth, and just also not disturbing that first connection between mother and baby at all is vital in any birthing situation, whether it's a home birth or hospital birth or unassisted birth or whatever you want it is to just make sure that we don't interrupt that beautiful bond that is taking place between mother and baby, because that's the moment the mother is releasing the most oxytocin that she'll ever release in her entire life. Aren't we amazing? And it's the moment that she falls in love with her baby, but it also has this physical property of releasing the placenta from the womb and contracting the womb, and that prevents postpartum hemorrhage. So there's a big question mark around high postpartum hemorrhage rates around the world. Was the moment of birth interrupted and disturbed? And yes, of course it was. It's very rare that a mother and a baby are left for the first hour to just be with nobody asking them any questions. And nowadays it's taking pictures and cutting the cord and weighing and measuring the very and all of that. And that can all wait. It can wait until the next day. It doesn't need to happen immediately.
In the doula world, we call that the golden hour.
Yes.
And a lot of women are putting in their birth plans to not have any of the checks until that hour's over for exactly that reason. Yeah, so we're trying to kind of just help people to know that more and more, how precious these first moments.
It's vital. It's vital. I mean, it's like, I mean, other than the fact that it's just like absolutely beautiful, it's actually vital for their well-being.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear you speak, Ruth. And Cassie and I were speaking about Freebirth the other day, and we were sort of chewing over how important is it to be prepared and to have all the information you need and to teach yourself birth first aid. and how important is it to just trust the process, and where's the balance? And I imagine that's very unique to different women and different couples, how much they research in order that they can then let go and trust the process, and how much for some couples actually, as you say, like not cramming the neocortex enough. It's very, very easy, isn't it, to do far too much reading and research.
I mean, I think what we need to remember is that if we meet the basic needs, if we really create the right environment for oxytocin to flow, then birth will happen, and it will happen safely. So that is really, really important to remember. And then for those who are attending births, in a doula capacity, so it's a non-medical holding of space that you're doing at a birth. Just remember your own adrenaline levels. I think that is vital, and I suppose that goes for the partner of the person who is birthing. I mean, it's exactly what I was saying. Yeah, that the only person who's allowed to flap is the mother. But yeah, that the person who is attending the birth needs to be the only adrenaline levels they have control over are their own. And so, all those breathing techniques that we teach to laboring or to pregnant women for labor, actually, I think should be used by the people who are attending birth.
Totally.
Just be aware of their own breathing they're the ones who need to let go. They're the ones who need to be able to be stable, and just having an activity like knitting, it's a repetitive hand movement that keeps us busy. If you're not a knitter or a crocheter, drawing is also really, really great. I always have a pack of cards in my bag as well for play solitaire, a good book, and just sleeping, resting, just like actually learning to be a cat at labor. I mean, Michelle Adon talks about how if you're unsure as to what to do at a birth, then if there's a cat, copy what they're doing, and you'll find that they're kind of curled up somewhere, really not perturbed by what's going on. And that's it's because our adrenaline levels need to be so low. We need to be in an altered state in our own way, and not in our neocortexes, and so we really need to allow ourselves to kind of go into that very dream-like meditative state, because if we're holding on, then it's much harder for the mother to let go. So it's really just about releasing and letting go, and that would be really my advice to anybody who's preparing to birth, is to just allow for that as much as possible. And if you are freaking out at a birth, go outside for a bit. Okay, we're not allowed outside, but go into the bathroom.
We're allowed into the garden, surely.
Pardon?
It's true. Surely we're allowed into the garden.
Yes.
It's so true. Like that, probably about 90% of someone who's attending a birth and supporting it, 90% of their role is just their relaxed presence, just the currency of their presence, intelligent tea drinking, being,
exactly,
just being, the art of being. And in this culture, obviously, lots of people that, there's a lot of doing and not so much being. So, like you said earlier on, it's about unlearning, just softening and quieting, which in a way, this time during lockdown is, for some of us, encouraging. It's quite a yin time.
Absolutely.
So in some ways you can align yourself with that energy, and maybe that could be supportive even.
Absolutely. A good way to arrive at a birth as well is we all need to wash our hands when we arrive at a birth anyway. Nowadays we have to wash our hands constantly anyway. But is to really use that as a mindfulness meditation, to really just, wash your hands slowly, and to just really get a feel for your own hand and the water and the soap, and to just really use it as an opportunity to just kind of love yourself and arrive and be present, and to just be mindful of that in everything that you do when you're present at a birth, because it's holy. It's such a holy situation that you're stepping into, and so to really be humble in that situation as well. Yeah.
I wonder if there's any recent stories of free birth or otherwise home births that you've attended recently that have been particularly inspiring, or that you might like to share.
Well, it was the first birth that I attended this year, and it was a woman who'd had 2 previous cesareans, and she has actually written her story and sent it to me, and I'm supposed to publish it, so I will at some point. Just haven't gotten around to it. And yeah, I mean, I think with her first labor, she did go into labor, but after a series of interventions, you know, it was an epidural. It was deemed necessary for her to have a Caesar, but it was quite late. I think she was already 8 centimeters or something crazy like that. Then with her second pregnancy, she had an elective Caesar. It was advised that way, and then with her third pregnancy, it was very interesting with her because she came to one of our home birth gatherings. We run quarterly home birth gatherings here in Cape Town. She was a very shy woman, and kind of very tentatively asked some questions towards the end, but then, you know, came and found me and my practice and came and booked with us. And and then when she went into labor, I went with my midwife colleague who was working with us from Canada for 3 months, Erica, and it was this on-off 3-day labor, and she lives with her husband and her 2 children in like a section of a house that's kind of attached to her mother's house, so there's quite a free flow of family. And I think initially it was just a case of kind of making sure that family and children and everybody wasn't around too much, but yeah, it was an interesting, in the end, what was just so beautiful was that what happened was that she was in her bedroom and I was lying kind of near her, and then Erica was also lying, and Erica is pregnant, but she was also pregnant lying there. And so it felt like we were just a circle of women lying in these, you know, because it was kind of like that, the triangle lying on this bed. The husband was in the sitting room, sleeping on the sofa, and the mother was next door with the children, the other 2 children. And at some point her daughter came in, and I think she's about 5 or 6 years old, and she really needed to be with her mom. So she came and she snuggled with her mom, and it was so beautiful because she fell asleep in her mother's arms with her mother laboring on the bed. And her mother was lying on her side, and the 2 of us were just lying with her as well. We were drifting in and out of sleep between surges, and we all just were sleeping and being in this like half asleep, altered state. And it really felt like, because when elephants give birth, they create a circle of safety around the laboring mother, and they hold her like that, and they will face outwards and create this protective circle around her while she labors and births in the center. And it really felt like we were doing that. We were this like little circle of elephants on this bed, half asleep, dozy, you know, kind of rocking from side to side. And then it was just so beautiful with the daughter lying in her arms like that, also going to sleep. And then at some point when she, you know, I could hear that the sounds were changing, then the mother got up and she kind of hobbled to the little toilet that was right next to the bedroom, and she squatted down on the floor there, and the baby was born very soon afterwards, and the daughter slept right through it. It was amazing. It was very special.
Wow.
But it really is this thing of, you know, like initially there was this excitement around the fact that this woman was in labor and the family was, you know, wanting to get involved. And it really, I was thinking about it last night as well when I was going to sleep, this thing of how often when we do at a birth, nothing happens. We can't figure out, the baby stuck. And then actually once everybody is completely and utterly exhausted and they can't do anymore, and the dad passes out and the dude passes out and the midwife falls asleep, then the mother's in this place of like, oh, I have to do this. I'm the one who has to actually do the work, and none of these people can rescue me. And that's often when the birth happens, or is able to happen.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, thank you so much for that story. Yeah. So
It really brings across the animal nature, doesn't it?
Pardon, say that again?
Sorry, just really reminded me of that animal nature. Just lying there, the cat energy, the elephant energy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful image.
Elephants and cats. Yeah.
Yeah. And certainly in my experience, animals and young children are very comfortable around a labouring woman.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of adult anxiety about how they will cope, the pets and the young children. But actually there's something about that animal instinctive nature of birth that animals and young children are very close to, very comfortable and familiar with. And I feel, well, certainly in my experience, they've supported the labour in their way of, being so relaxed and it being the most natural thing in the world for them, which I think is a surprise for adults to comprehend in the beginning sometimes.
Absolutely. As the children get older, then they struggle a little bit more because it becomes a little bit more abstract, I think. But very young children, absolutely, they're just curious. They're kind of like, oh, baby, and what's that? Sometimes a bit too curious. But no, children are usually absolutely wonderful at births, and as long as they have somebody that they feel safe with. I think if the other parent, or there's a grandmother around, or even if the doula or the midwife is somebody that they've gotten to know, then they feel that they can kind of sit on their lap, and that's a safe space for them. But if the mother is the only person where they feel safe, and the mother is behaving in a way that is scary for them, then that, and I've only experienced that once actually, and that was with quite a young child, and for her it was a little bit disturbing because she was so used to being able to go to her mother, and so in her case I would have planned it slightly differently, but otherwise all my experiences with children have been fun actually, and beautiful, really beautiful.
Alix and me have been to a birth together before where there was a 4-year-old present, and certainly there were moments when he needed to have an adult that was designated to play with him, because otherwise he wanted to play climbing frame with his labouring mother, which obviously wasn't appropriate. But there were also such exquisite moments of them in the water pool together, making little paper boats with grapes on it, and just bringing in that laughter and that innocence and that playfulness can really obviously help.
I actually thought you were going to talk about a different birth, Cassie, where we were with another 4-year-old, I think, 4 or 5-year-old, and he was amazing. And he came in and he sat quietly in the corner, and then he started doing this, and he was making this movement, and he was doing some kind of energetic support, which was breathing and movement, and very, very tuned in.
Incredibly. Everyone else started mimicking his movements.
Yeah, we all started doing it.
Energy work inspired by a young boy. Incredible intuition.
Beautiful. Wow, that's quite incredible.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can wrap up, and before we do, I just want to mention the retreat that we had planned that isn't happening now, not in May. But I'd like to just really make a strong intention and prayer for that to materialise in the not too distant future. So for those of you who don't know, Ruth will be coming over to England to lead a retreat where she'll be teaching about the spirit of her work, true midwifery, and teaching some basic first aid. And we'll also hold that gathering as a big prayer for the healing of birth and the healing of our earth. Because if birth is held in the right sacred way, the way that our children enter this life, can then open the way for a beautiful way. So I look forward to when that finally does happen, Ruth.
Me too. It will definitely.
Yeah.
And singing and music is going to be a big part of that retreat as well.
Absolutely. Well, that's what we're doing with our lockdown, is learning lots of new songs.
Great.
Yeah.
So we'll put all the resources that Ruth talked about at the bottom of the page when we post this video.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And are there any final words you'd like to share, Ruth, before we bring it to a close?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. It's lovely to connect with you both. And thanks for allowing me to postpone the other day when my car was broken into. But I mean, I think I'm always I always hopeful, because I really do feel that there is this nugget inside us that knows our true nature, and birth is very much part of that. And so I'm always grateful for people like you who are there to continue to remind people things that they may have forgotten, and then once they're reminded, then it usually comes quite easily. So thank you.
And thank you so much, Ruth. And I know that you're an incredible inspiration for so many birthing women and birth workers, so thank you so much for what you're offering to the world and your service to women. Thank you.
Yay. We look forward to weaving paths more.
Likewise. Go well.
Okay, go well, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.